This is the regular council meeting of the city of South Fulton, Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. Mr. Clerk, I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
It's the roll call vote. The Honorable William Bill Edwards, Mayor.
Here.
The Honorable Catherine F. Rao, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2.
Present.
The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3.
President.
The Honorable Naima Gilliard, District 4. And Mr. Mayor, I'll just announce for the record that I believe Councilmember Gilliard indicated she would not be present for today's meeting.
We did.
The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5.
Present and accounted for.
The Honorable Councilmember Khalid, District 6.
Present.
And the Honorable Mark Baker, District 7.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you have a quorum.
Invocation, Chaplain, please.
Yes, sir. Mayor and City Council, City Manager, just allow me to thank you all so very much for your prayers and support in the loss of my brother. Our family really appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to lead us in prayer. Dear gracious God, with an attitude of gratitude, we honestly say thank you. Last year, this time, we all have gone through so much. We've lost a lot, but we've also gained so much because we have each other. And together, oh God, we can accomplish all things you have assigned in our hands to do. So empower, strengthen, and give the wisdom to our mayor and council, our city manager, oh God, so as they lead us, we will follow their leadership and great things will always happen. We thank you for the prayers of our faith community, oh God, that happened on this Sunday. And we just thank you in Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll accept the motion for the adoption of the council agenda. Anyone?
Yes, Mayor. I need to add something, or I need to figure out how to do this. At the last work session, I requested that we add a line item on the regular agenda to correct the process of the zoning hearings so that we could hear cases on work session and vote on them during a regular council meeting.
I heard that Ms. Sandra Jones. Ms. Jones. There's been some confusion about that, and I think that we need to resolve that issue. And I think the quickest way to resolve that issue is for us to vote for it today. Ms. Willis and Mr. Clerk, I would add that to the agenda. I wanted Ms. Sandra Jones to speak on it too, but there is something.
Mr. Mayor, she was inadvertently knocked off and is logging back into the meeting momentarily.
Okay.
Okay. From my understanding, they thought I was going to actually bring something formally back, and that wasn't the case. But if that was a misunderstanding, I do understand. But I just don't want us to go to another zoning hearing and then, we be forced to vote on items that we hear the same day we hear them. The whole point was to give our staff and residents enough time to work through issues between the work session and a regular meeting.
Okay, so I've heard both sides, and I think there is a disconnect, and what we can do to remedy that is let's put it on the agenda, and the group of us can vote it up or down. All right, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, sir. I'll add that to the regular agenda for consideration upon approval of the meeting agenda.
All right.
So I move that we approve the meeting agenda for February 23rd, Tuesday, 4 p.m.
Is there a second?
Do we need to put the amendment in there?
Yeah, a second. Oh, with the amendment. I apologize. With the amendment.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, roll call, please.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item with the amendment was approved unanimously.
Next item, please.
Next item is approval of city council meeting minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes from January 12th, 2021, the work session minutes from February 9th, 2021, and the zoning public hearing minutes from February 9th, 2021. And I would also like to place on the record that there was a request by a council member to clarify the listing of the consent agenda to one vote and one listing as opposed to all of the different items. And that has been so noted.
So move.
Have a
So
second?
move.
Second.
Properly moved to second, in discussion.
I have discussion.
Go right ahead.
So just to clarify, we will be changing these minutes from the January 12th meeting will be changed to say that we either voted for or against the consent agenda and not list the individual items.
That's correct.
This will be the case for all meetings going forward.
That's correct.
I think
Point
that,
of order, don't we have to vote on that?
yeah. I think what and Mr. Adams, correct me if I'm wrong. We have been pulling stuff off the consent agenda to add to the regular agenda for discussion, right?
That's correct.
Well, what are we missing here?
There was a practice instituted last year. Instead of listing one single vote for the consent agenda, early in 2020, we began listing the single vote for all items that are included in the consent agenda. So if there's 11 items in the consent agenda, we just duplicated whatever the initial vote was for all of those items. In this case, a couple council members have requested that we go back to the previous way we did it and just list it one time under the consent agenda with the understanding and listing that the items in the consent agenda are all approved or disapproved under one vote.
No, I'm in the queue. May I speak?
Hold up, Ms. Willis. So I'm trying to see what the difference
Yeah.
is in what we've been doing to what you're saying. I've been in this business for 17 years. I ain't never heard of it. The consent agenda is the consent agenda. Either you vote for it or you don't vote for it. If you have a problem with this consent agenda, you ask that with any item, you ask that an item be removed. And then you vote on the remaining items on the consent agenda and move it forward. What am I missing?
That's correct. That's the process, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, I'm in the queue.
Okay, I got 3 people in the queue. I got you. I just want to make that point clear. So I have here Mr. Khalid's in the queue, then Ms. Willis and Ms. Wild.
Okay, so allow me to help illuminate what you are missing, Mr. Mayor.
Please illuminate me, sir.
Mr. Clerk, you said that a change was instituted. When was that change instituted?
In January 2020.
And how was that change instituted? Because I do not remember it coming before council for a vote.
The previous clerk administratively did it.
So the previous clerk made a unilateral change to the process of recording meeting minutes. But now we're going to have to take a vote to undo what she unilaterally did without consulting council. And I believe that Mr. Edwards is right, that you either vote for the consent agenda or you don't. And like that is how we recorded from the beginning of recorded history of this city.
Right.
We either voted for a consent agenda or we did not. We did not list in every individual item and say that council members did not vote for a specific item. We simply recorded that we voted for or against the consent agenda.
Right.
I think that we should be able to return to what we originally did from the dawn of this city before it was changed unilaterally by a clerk without consulting counsel who no longer works for this city.
Okay, Ms. Willis? Ms. Cleese, you were finished, weren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Willis?
So I agree with Mayor with one exception. If something is on a consent agenda, we vote on the consent agenda. The consent agenda passes the majority of council votes on it in the affirmative. And for those who don't vote on a consent agenda, they are recorded with a vote no. We don't individualize things on the consent agenda unless someone requests to remove something off of this consent agenda. And if they request to remove something off of the consent agenda, we vote on whether or not we allow that removal. And by a majority, we could remove something off the consent agenda and discuss it and make it a part of the regular agenda. The other thing is, once you can't add anything to the consent agenda. Once a meeting, you're not allowed to add anything to the consent agenda. For example, what's on the consent agenda is on the consent. You're only allowed to remove by a majority vote.
Okay. All right, Ms. Rowland, let's find a way to resolve this issue.
I agree totally with Councilwoman Willis. And I just think we should go ahead and vote it up or down. I think it promotes transparency about where we are on any of these issues.
So I move, Mayor, I move that we vote. I move that we go back to the process of approving the consent agenda by majority vote. If someone wants to remove something from the consent agenda, then they're allowed to remove an item by majority vote. If someone votes against the consent agenda, then that is recorded as their vote.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, you already have a motion on the floor. This will need to be a substitute.
What was the motion?
The motion was to approve by Councilmember Willis, seconded by Councilmember Gums.
That was for the meeting minutes, right?
For the meeting minutes, yes. And I think Councilmember Willis wants to do a amendment to clarify the procedure.
So that approval to approve the meeting minutes was made by me. So I would like to make the amendment to my. Let me just withdraw. I'll withdraw my motion and I'll make a whole new motion. I move that we approve the meeting minutes, and I'll make two motions, and I'll come back and I'll make two motions. I'll move that we approve the meeting minutes for January 12th, February 9th, February 9th, for the zoning public hearing, for the work session, and January 12th regular minute meetings.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Can you hear me? I do have discussion.
No, I didn't hear you. I didn't see you in the queue either. What's your discussion, sir?
Mr. Adams, I think the question isn't about how we approve or disapprove the consent agenda. The question at hand is, how is it recorded? Mr. Adams, are you now clear about how this vote will be recorded going forward?
Well, let me clear something up right now. What's on the floor is approval of the meeting minutes.
Correct.
That's on the floor right now. And let me carry that vote out, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Phillips. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes for January 12th, February 9th, and the zoning public hearing for February 9th. Councilmember Rao?
Yes.
Councilmember Gums?
Yes.
Councilmember Willis?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid?
I abstain.
Why?
I would like it recorded for the record in my abstention that in the meeting minutes of January 12th, I am in support of the city council proclamations in item 6. I am in support of the request to enter into approval of the service contract in item 8. I am in request of the city council approval of the GMA safety liability management grant. I am in support of the request to approve the LMO contractors. I am in support of the request to approve the intergovernmental agreement. And I am in support of the request to approve city council candidate qualification dates. So I would like it recorded that I am actually in favor of the consent agenda items 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13 in the January 12th agenda. Thank you.
Point of order, Mayor.
No, that's okay.
Point of order.
What is your order? Is your point of order procedural?
Yes.
Let me hear what's procedural.
What just happened is not the way we approve consent agendas. And what just happened is not germane to this vote.
Okay, so I'm trying to get that vote out, Mr. And then we can come back to this. Let me get the vote for the meetings, please, y'all. All right, roll call, please.
Aye.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilmember Baker. That item was approved 60501.
Mayor, may I be allowed to make the second motion concerning the consent agenda and you open it up for discussions?
Yes,
And-
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I move that we approve the process for the consent agenda as follows. We approve the consent agenda by majority of council vote. It's recorded by majority, and if anyone votes no against the consent agenda, it's recorded as a no. If there are individual items that need to be addressed, the council can move to remove those items off the consent agenda by a vote of majority. If the consent agenda is on the agenda, no items are allowed to be added to the consent agenda. Only items are allowed to be removed from the consent agenda by majority vote. Thank you. That's my motion.
Second.
Properly moved in second discussion. Hearing none.
I have discussion.
Well, you got to say it, sir. I'm looking over at the queue. I'm listening, and I don't
I have Zoom difficulties. I have discussion if you
go right ahead, sir.
I want to be clear. Well, first, Mr. Adams, are you clear with that motion of how future votes will be recorded?
Yes, sir. I'm clear on that motion.
Could you please explain to me how future votes be recorded at the way that they are in this current set of meeting minutes?
Yes, the for one vote will be recorded for the consent agenda. Those voting against it will be listed in the negative for those items.
And will those items be listed separately or will they be listed as the consent agenda?
As it is right now, it would be listed in one vote under the consent agenda,
Right.
but it will include all items under the consent agenda.
Right. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, go ahead, Mr.
may I be recognized, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just want to say real quick for the edification of the public, just because it seems to be a tad bit gray and even understanding for council, but I do have an understanding. And I think plainly speaking, we cannot vote affirmatively for the consent agenda. I mean, we can only vote affirmatively or in the nay for the consent agenda.
Right.
If there are items that we don't agree with being on the consent agenda, if we vote for it, they will pass. If we want to pull them, we have the opportunity to pull them, but it requires a second and an affirmative vote to do so.
Right.
If that doesn't happen, they pass as a collective, which
Right.
means if we're only voting on all things as a collective. If you agree with some things, disagree with some things, it's only a collective. So there's no way to find out what either of us, any of my colleagues or myself, are able to say that we have a discrepancy with or not, because it's approved collectively.
That you're very right.
Correct?
Thank you so much. I'm
All right.
going to call for the vote. Let's have a roll call.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was approved unanimously.
Thank you so much. Next item, please.
Next item is public hearing, City of South Fulton Comprehensive Plan Kickoff, CDRA.
Staff,
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the next steps of our comprehensive plan. I would like to just give a brief update as to what a comprehensive plan is for the general public. The comprehensive plan is a document that sets forth the city's vision and goals, identifying where we see ourselves for the next 20 years. We are updating this plan every 5 years by what is required by state. You'll find that the comprehensive plan speaks very heavily on housing, transportation, public works, economic development, public safety, parks and recreation, and more. It involves the public. The public is a voice that will be heard in regards to the drafting of this file. So once we, in fact, have our public involvement meetings, that file will be created based on the voices heard from the residents. As mentioned, we'll have that calendar prepared and we'll have it posted on our website. We'll share it via social media, as well as any other communication efforts that we have with our communications department. The state requires this document, and the city, again, has a deadline to provide to the state by October 31st, 2021. The first requirement the state requires for us is, before we begin this process, is to have a public hearing, which is why we're here today. And of course, the only action tonight is to open the floor to hear public comments, and then there's no action required in regards to a vote. So for that, Mayor, that concludes my report. And again, it's just to open the floor for public comment.
yeah, I open the public hearing. Mr. Clerk, all those, we're going to do 10 minutes each, those for and against. We can do those who are for first.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and Council, we did not receive any specific public comment for this item. My understanding from Ms. Reed that this was the announcement and kickoff, and that, more detailed information will be made available for the public to comment upon.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Next item, please.
Next item is council comments. Council members will be allowed 2 minutes per council member.
Is it a public comments or council comment?
No, this is city council comments, council members.
Got you. Go ahead.
I guess we'll start with District 1, Councilmember Rao.
I don't have any updates at this time that I'd like to share.
Okay.
Next will be Councilmember Gums.
We successfully had a wonderful event, the evening of annual prayer. I want to first thank all my colleagues and Mayor Pro Tem Helen Zenobia Willis for partnering and making this a success. So I definitely think, also thank the constituents. I hope that they enjoyed that evening. Also, on my YouTube page, we had a forum on COVID vaccines and the hesitation that a lot of our residents are facing with getting the vaccine. I think it was very informative, and I will encourage a lot of the residents to go to that page and actually look at that. We had a lot of Black doctors, some even from our community as well, to share their thoughts on the COVID vaccine. And we will be having community conversations that will be coming up in March. So I do ask the residents to look out for that additional information. Thank you.
Next is Councilmember Willis.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank every faith-based minister who participated in our inaugural prayer service. It was a powerful event, and it is now available on YouTube if you missed it. It is on the city's YouTube, my YouTube, and also my social media sites. We are starting up the food distributions in the city of South Fulton again in partnership with Atlanta Community Food Bank. The first food distribution will be at Walkmall Park, and it is between 1 and 3. We have a registration link for you to go out and register for the hour that you want to pick up or drive through and be served. You either can be served between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. We're asking that you register so we can alleviate the traffic issues that we were having when we did these drive-through distributions. And we will be adhering to the registrations. And so please go out. The information is on our City of South Fulton website. I think majority of the council members have shared the flyer. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call the number on the flyer, and they will give you the information. I have worked with the city manager and staff, and in partnership, this is in partnership with Park and Rec. They are helping me deploy this plan because the food distributions I will move it around this time around the entire city. So our goal is to host a food distribution in every district. So I would ask council members, as we come to your district, feel free to come in and volunteer, and also check with my LaShondra Little to see how you can support the food distribution. And I hope this time we get 100% participation. Thank you.
Next is Councilmember Reeves.
Oh, great day, everybody. Absolutely. So I guess thank you for the opportunity to share our council comments. I applaud the leadership of my colleagues, Councilwoman Gumbs and Councilwoman Willis, for one is organizing national prayer, as we all need a little bit of prayer sometimes. And also too, for spearheading the food giveaway to rotate throughout the districts. That is full participation in all residents will benefit from the giveaway. And well, we have a few things coming up in the area I serve. Is we have a partner with the city and to give a lot of Camelot. That's a day of giving and for some of the residents that was displaced by fire. And so we're also teamed up and partnered up with Jacobs Hill and Hand, who is providing free COVID testing and other medical supplies for seniors. And we have we also talk about, this is part of my Do Read, Do Lead series, is we got a book. Please go donate to any fire station in the city of South Fulton. You'll see a drop box there. Please do that. We have a book giveaway at Burdette this Saturday as well. I Can't Quit. And so it's going to be a pre-registration. Look for that to come out. And we're going to be doing virtual readings to our schools. And so I'm calling all men to please come in and sign up for it as our Do Read, Do Lead series, as that's going to be something that's going to be awesome, particularly to the kids in the area in South Fulton. And just thank you to constituents for being the best part of South Fulton and stay involved. In District 5, you will be receiving a full briefing of this comprehensive plan use. We're going to need full involvement, and we're going to have every single outlet that we possibly can. And so this is very important to the future growth of our city. And so you will be receiving a briefing on this, and it will go out district-wide. So look for that, and I look for your participation in this process. Thank you.
Councilmember Khalid.
Good evening, South Fultonites. There are so many things happening that I'm working on. I won't have time to go over all of them now. I do encourage you to sign up for my newsletter or receive mobile updates by texting the word Fulton, F-U-L-T-O-N, to 33777. Again, you can text the word Fulton to 33777. And with the balance of my time, I would like to take a moment to mark a most unfortunate anniversary. Today is the 1-year anniversary of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And so I would just like to take a moment of silence in memory of Mr. Arbery, his family, and all of those in South Fulton and around the state that are fighting for justice. Thank you. South Fulton forever.
Next is Councilmember Baker. Councilmember Baker.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Give him a few minutes back.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for, can you hear me?
Yeah, I just want to give you your time back. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, sir. With that, I want to start by saying thank you to several people, including starting with our mayor, for assisting me in something that has been ongoing issues in District 7. That is the double turning lane from Oakley Industrial to 138 or Jonesboro Road. Myself, the mayor, Mayor Williams, Mayor Vince Williams of Union City, Marta, G-Dot, we've been working diligently, and we've had several calls, and it seems like we may be closer to a solution within the next 6 to 8 months or soon to creating a double left turn lane towards Interstate 85 off of Oakley Industrial Boulevard. This has been something that has been problematic for over the over 1,400 residents in Oakley Township, Oakley Elementary School, the buses, the Amazon trucks coming from Fairburns Distribution Center, and other residents in Union City have been affected as well. But I just want to say thank you to all of those individuals who took part in those conversations and Zoom meetings to help work on the resolve. And I'm excited that we're finally closer to it. And lastly, I would like to add out the public extension outside of those individuals who are working intimately with me as attorneys for the national reparations movement. If there are any attorneys in the city of South Fulton who are interested in joining the reparations movement, the internal reparations movement, not external. We have to work on our internal reparations and knowing what we're going to do, or collectively conscious raising to work towards internal reparations. We do know that there is an external reparation that is needed and desired by our community. It's owed to us. We're working towards that. However, there are internal factors that we as a community have to work towards as well. And if you are an attorney in the city of South Fulton and you're interested in that, please give me an email at mark.baker at cityofsouthfultonga.gov. Thank you so much.
Mr. Clerk.
Yes, the next item is going to be public comment. I did receive 9 public comment cards that were submitted by the deadline, and it's my understanding that Ms. Gloria Williams, who did send in her public comment card, wishes to come on to the meeting live, and she has the link, and once she comes in, I'll bring her into the meeting. But so far she has not come into the meeting yet, so I'll begin with the comment cards that I received through the process.
Go ahead.
Okay, I set the clock for 30 minutes. First comment card is from Lakeisha Williams, who lives on Lava Lane, zip code 30291. She states, it would be nice to see our community building green spaces, shopping, and dining areas for our families to spend money in our own neighborhoods without having to drive to another city to enjoy what Atlanta has to offer. Union City in particular has very limited options for its citizens outside of fast food and dollar stores. What is the plan to make our city more progressive? Next is Pamela Harris, who lives on Lion Avenue in District 1. Mayor and members of council, we do not want any more warehouses in any district. We do not want any more residential developments below $500,000 in districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are oversaturated with lower price developments that stifle property values. We want more commercial development that is needed and wanted as expressed by residents in surveys completed in 2019, including medical facilities, professional office space, healthier dining, and more diverse retail for all districts. Also, we are currently being censored on some of the City of South Fulton YouTube meetings, and the chat is being disabled. We were advised that the constituents are in charge. Let your voices be heard. Tell 5 to 10 neighbors each, and whatever you do, don't let up. All city officials are employees. They work for their constituents, us. Censors are seeking to limit freedom of thought and expression by restricting our words. Each neighbor contact at least 5 people. Next is Jewel Johnson, who lives on Orkney Lane in District 1. As a resident of the City of South Fulton, I am asking Mayor and Council to listen to the people, as many of us have let you know we do not want any more residential development below $500,000 in districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are oversaturated with lower price developments that stifle property values. Next is Kari Arnold, who lives in 30331. Property values. Hello, next month will mark a year since Breonna Taylor was killed in a no-knock raid. South Fulton implemented measures last summer by banning no-knock raids, but as listed in the doc created by Campaign Zero below, there are more measures that can be taken in South Fulton, particularly the does not contain restrictions in the doc created by Campaign Zero below. Ms. Williams, please mute it. I'll alert you when we're ready. Thank you. I'm sorry. Do not contain restrictions on cash property seized. Since civil asset forfeiture has ruined communities across the country, can we implement an ordinance for this in South Fulton? And he lists a website here that I will send to you. Next is Michael Williams, who lives on Brookford Lane in District 2. He states, Owl Rock Road, Stonewall Tail Road, Enon Road repair, City of South Fulton policing, subdivisions with HOA rules, City of South Fulton holding HOAs responsible of doing right by taxpayers, constant cleanup of City of South Fulton, Stonewall Tail, Campbellton, Owl Rock Road, Camp Creek Parkway, Fulton Industrial, Parks and Gyms immediate upgrade with nature trails, speeding on Camp Creek by Campbellton, inflation on property taxes, dead trees and torn down signs, a new Nextdoor app with neighbor-friendly requirements, Greystone Power and Waste Industries unsatisfactory. And that completes the forms. Ms. Williams did submit a form, but she is in the meeting, and I will give her 2 minutes. Ms. Williams, can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You hear you loud and clear. You can go ahead.
Okay. All right, to the mayor, members of city council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I speak on behalf of myself, a resident of District 2 in the city of South Fulton, and many of my neighbors in District 2 and other districts. And again, we are concerned about what's happening in the way of residential development and commercial development with regards to how it impacts our property values. I am requesting that City Council immediately impose a moratorium on any more detached single-family and townhome residential developments being built under 500,000 and being transitioned to rental units in the city of South Fulton. The moratorium should be enacted for as long as it takes to create and enact ordinances that would permanently ban such practices. I also request a limit on the number of detached single-family and townhome units owned in one subdivision by a single entity or any division of that entity. In addition, I ask that City Council consider zero tolerance for any warehouse facility being located in the city of South Fulton. That's new facilities being built in the city of South Fulton, zero tolerance. I think that there's a warehouse being considered in District 3 that should not be approved, even though the explanation I've gotten from several people is that the majority of the development is in the city of East Point. That's fine for East Point, but the small portion that is in the city of South Fulton, we don't want it to be used for warehouse facility. It backs up to several older neighborhoods. We also want the city to take serious consideration to limit and stop the development of lower priced homes. I ask you to consider that many residents who live in Walden Park, Union Crossing, LeJardin, Gates of Stone Lake, Hampton Oaks, the lakes at Cedar Grove, and many, many other subdivisions, if they were to sell their home wanting to buy a new home, where would they go? They would have to leave the city of South Fulton because there's nothing above the price point of their existing home that's being currently built in the city of South Fulton, except for one development. And that's Canaan Ridge at Wolf Creek. That's the only new development that's being built above the price point of $500,000 in the city of South Fulton. And I do have details on the affordability of homes in that price range. And contrary to what many believe, that is still a very affordable price range given today's interest rates and the credit requirements. And if people at a large scale were able to afford those homes prior to 2008, many, many more of those people and other folks can afford them now. This would also attract more diversity in socioeconomic levels coming to the city of South Fulton. We live very close to the not the largest, but the busiest airport in the world. And less than 5% of the people who work, the 60,000 people who work in that airport, live in the city of South Fulton. We have great potential in terms of attracting more residents, and we also need to work at retaining the residents that we have.
Ms. Williams, we'll have to cut it. We're running out of time.
Okay, and then one last thing for my residents, they all need to have an opportunity to speak at these meetings. The Zoom link needs to be shared to all of them, or they need to, and I realize that we have to do virtual meetings because of the pandemic, but there needs to be a better system so that you can hear from majority of the residents in South Fulton.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. I really appreciate you. Mr. Clerk, next time.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor and Council, we do have two people that would like to provide public comment, and I'm willing to make a statement regarding our public comment process to educate our public in terms of how they can participate.
You want to make a statement to that effect?
Well, we do have two people that would like to give comment with the 2-minute limit. If it's the will of the council and the mayor.
Did they just come in?
One of them did just come in, yes.
We're gonna have to, I hate that, but you know, we're gonna have to hold it here. We're just far behind schedule.
Okay.
Let's just hold.
Excuse me, but this is what you are elected for. Why hold their comment when you?
Williams, I hear you, baby. I understand. I'm just trying to say, if you came after you, we had 30 minutes that we've given. We went well over the 30 minutes. So if you came after you spoke, then you were not in the speaker's queue. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Miss. I'll tell you what we do.
Can we make an exception?
Hold it, Ms. Gunn.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Adams, give those two people 2 minutes apiece. No one comes in after them.
okay.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yeah.
My point of order is that according to several residents, there is still miscommunication about how they're supposed to participate with public comments. And I don't know what else to do. I thought we were supposed to put out some type of communication on how residents participate in public comments, but we really need to do that because it's overwhelmingly residents out here on the chat saying it is not clear how to participate with public comments.
Definitely you do that, Ms. Willis. I need to get these two people in. So would you call the first person? And thank you for the comment, Ms. Willis. Could you call the first person, Mr. Adams?
It's Miss Petra Parker is coming in. And as she comes in, I would definitely like to address that and take this opportunity to explain that process to the public in this forum once the people speak.
Okay, the last name is what?
Petra Parker. Ms. Parker, are you there?
Ms. Parker, are you there? Ms. Parker, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Go right
Yes.
ahead, Parker, we can hear you.
Thank you for allowing me to participate.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I supposed to say something?
Yeah, do you have a comment for the mayor and council?
Well, basically, I was here participating because I wanted to hear what was being stated regarding the zoning for the warehousing. And so I just wanted to hear first and then I'll make my comments later.
Okay, so I think Ms. Parker was looking for a zoning meeting, which comes at our next meeting. Am I right, Mr. Clerk?
You're absolutely correct.
Yes.
Okay.
That's our next meeting, right?
Yes, that'll be on March the 9th.
March the 9th?
March 9th, we will be talking about, that's the meeting for our zonings. And we would welcome you to come in to the meetings and speak publicly yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person, Mr. Adams.
Mr. Mayor, can I take 2 minutes just to explain the process since we have a lot of to the mayor and council and citizens. The public comment process is outlined on the city's website. Citizens are allowed to fill out the public comment card on that site. The form is open from the Thursday before the meeting to the Monday prior to the meeting. So you will need to submit your public comment form from that Thursday up until that Monday. And on that card, if you wish to provide a live comment, please state at the top, I wish to provide live comment. That allows me, that triggers me to send a Zoom invitation to you to give you the parameters to provide public comment. I encourage everyone to read the public comment at council meetings. There is a button on the front of the city's website that outlines the process. If anyone has any concerns or confusion or would like to offer suggestions to improve it, please feel free to call me or email me at corey.adams@cityofsouthfultonga.gov. We would look forward to having you participate at the next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
I understand there's one more, am I correct?
I didn't hear you.
Is there one more speaker?
I don't show the other speaker. I don't show that person in the meeting.
Mr. Adams, you need to release people who are not a part of the council and staff from this Zoom meeting. I still see the person that was in public, that Ms. Parker is still in the Zoom.
Ms. Parker, okay. Let me
Yeah, Ms.
see.
Parker, I would ask
And
that. Thank you, Ms. Parker.
Mayor,
I
I believe a Sonia Patterson resident is asking to make live comments. That was my understanding. I don't know if that is the same
asked the
individual.
question, I ask it again. Is there anyone else left in the queue to speak in public comment? So we can.
Yes, I don't see Ms. Patterson in the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Gomes. All right, thank you so much. Thanks all of you who spoke on any issue today. I really appreciate it. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Next item is consent agenda.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved that we approve the consent agenda for February 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Properly moved in second discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gomes,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was approved unanimously.
Next item, please.
Next item is item 12. Request council approval to adopt the Model Mile Plan, CDRA.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the model mile.
Second.
Properly moved in second discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, roll call, please.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gomes,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Let's walk them out. Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
and then Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was approved unanimously.
Next item.
Item 13, request council approval to adopt the Campbellton Crossroads Plan.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the adoption of the Hamilton Crossroads Master Plan.
Properly moved in second discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, roll call, please.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gomes,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves, Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was approved unanimously.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is item 14, request council approval of a resolution establishing media and communications requirements for the city communications department. This is council members Willis and Gomes.
I'll entertain a motion.
Yes, I move that we approve, 1 second, let me get to it. I move that we approve this measure concerning communications. This measure will allow for communications efforts to be handled more equitably among city council and mayor. And I did work with staff, Gary Lethbridge, Councilmember Gomes, and I both worked with Gary Lethbridge on this policy. Thank you.
Second.
Properly moved in second, in discussion. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Khalid.
Just one question for Mr. Lethbridge, if he needed any more additional money or staffing to carry this policy out.
Mr. Khalid, we do not. However, we did discuss this policy, but I still have concerns about it. So I just want to make known that I did not wholesale buy into this policy, but we will not need additional staff, I do not think.
I'm sorry, could I I would just like to hear for the record your concerns. I do think sometimes we pass policies that are difficult for our staff to implement. So I do want to hear your feedback about that.
Most of the plans in this policy we agree with completely. There is one of the items is to send all news releases to mayor and council. We will start doing that effective immediately. There is one stipulation that we contact for news releases about district events. We contact the council person and get a quote from that. We're fine with that. We try to do that in most cases. I think the most troublesome one is the point that we attend all district meetings and events to provide coverage, because that, with our staff and the initiatives that we have to build an internal communication program, to build branding and marketing program, to start a community relations effort, to really fully build out our department, we do not have the time to commit to attending every event. Our compromise offer is that we work with your legislative specialists who usually are on site at those events to, we know ahead of time that they will be sending us photos from those events. We will be on hand at a computer, one of our team will, to distribute those immediately on social media, which is what we would do if we were there. So that is the main stipulation that causes me concern.
Okay, thank you.
And I was thinking why Mr. Khalid was asking you whether you need more money in that. But I don't know if you can do it if you don't need more money. So, but anyway, who's next? I got Mr. Khalid. You already spoke. Ms. Willis, go ahead.
And so I'm very disappointed to hear that there was a concern that was not discussed with Councilmember Gums and I when we spent an hour or so on this policy. And if it was concerns, I would have preferred for us to work out the concern prior to it bringing it before council. Second of all, is if you're not going to support all council members, then you shouldn't support. If you're not going to support the mayor and all council member events, then don't support any of us, because this is about equity. And I don't understand how you would choose which council events you're going to participate in and which ones you're just going to require the legislative specialist to send pictures and information to. That's what this policy is all about. That's what Councilmember Gums and I are all about. And so what I would suggest, so that we can work that piece of it out, because this is about equity. And this is about making sure that we all get the same information and we're not finding out information on the news. Because right now, we currently do not get copied on press releases that are going out. I request for a copy of one yesterday that supposedly went out that I have yet to receive. And so, Councilmember Gums, are you okay with us pulling this or holding this until the next regular council meeting? And then we get with Ms. Sally Jones and Mr. Leffridge to work out this last piece.
I wholeheartedly agree. So let's go ahead and hold it.
Thank you.
What was the motion on the floor, Mr. Clerk?
The motion was to approve. It was a motion by Councilmember Willis, second by Councilmember Gums.
Will you withdraw your motion?
Yes, I will withdraw, and I would like to bring this policy back at the next regular council meeting to be voted on. Give us an opportunity to get with Ms. Sally Jones, Mr. Don, and Mr. Leffridge to work out this last piece that we are just finding out that he has a problem with. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, I think that's sufficient.
Yes.
Okay. Next
item. Item 14 was held. Item 15 is the first reading of FY21 Budget Amendment number 2 ordinance.
I'll entertain a motion.
It's first reading, Mr. Mayor.
It's the first reading. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, the next items, the next 3 items are all first read, and we'll come back at the next regular meeting.
Do announce them though, however.
Yes.
Yes.
So there was no discussion for number 15, the budget amendment?
Oh, I do have discussion.
Mr. Khalid, is that you?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Allow me a second to pull up my notes. Okay, yes. My first bit of discussion is around the Blighted Property Fund. We created this Blighted Property Fund, and according to the legislation recorded by the city, it's supposed to be 100% of all fines, liens, and judgments, minus municipal court costs, plus 0.1% of the city's annual budget. At some point, our previous CFO, Mr. Malazi, advised that that might not be a good idea. We never formally passed a revision, but he did say that there would be this $200,000 in the fund, which I do see now. However, it was a restricted fund, and to my knowledge, no blighted properties were knocked down in 2019. So by 2020, there should be a second $200,000 for a total of $400,000. And I would just like to hear from our interim finance director where that money is. Can we get an accounting of that money? I believe that none of it has been spent, or maybe some fraction of it has been spent on court fees. But there just seems to be this static number from 2019.
Nina,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm on the call. Thank you very much for allowing me to address your concern. The $200,000 was what was presented in the FY 2021 budget presentation, and that was what was voted on and approved by council. If there's supposed to be an additional $200,000 added to the FY 2021 budget, I would need to present that to council for consideration and appropriation.
Okay, so let me try it differently. The ordinance created a restricted fund in 2019 for the 2020 budget. We are now in the 2021 budget. Does a restricted fund exist for blighted properties? And if so, where is the money from 2019 that was not spent?
What you see on the screen there, sir, the 200,000 just rolled forward from 2019. From 2020 into 2021. Nothing has been expended, and therefore that's why the amount is remained at 200,000. We knew that your intent was to have those funds available, so we made provision for those.
But again, the appropriation is annual, and so we are now in the second year, so there should be 400,000.
That's something that the city manager or someone would have to give me direction on increasing that appropriation. That is not how I understood it to be appropriated.
Okay, I did put in the chat. You can pull up the ordinance 2019-032. It does state that it will be an annual fund. And yes, so like it could maybe the city manager or assistant city manager speak to that.
I will review this information, Mr. Khalid. This is the first time that I've seen it. So if you don't mind, if we can have a chance to look over it, if it needs to be a budget change made, then we will bring that forward to the council.
Okay, and then lastly, I would just say when you do bring that forward, I would just request that we also get an accounting of where the money is and how it's, an accounting of what has been spent. I do think that some may have been spent on court cases, but some has not. It's of particular interest to me because as you will see that I posted in the chat, there was a home that burned down in 2018, and now 3 years later, not only has it not been demolished, it has become a dumping ground. And so I'm very eager to see this thing that we enacted in 2019 finally take shape. And my last question was about what the current balance of our contingency fund is. I see that we're advocating $90,000 to COVID-related expenses, and I just wanted to know what is left in the contingency fund.
That balance in contingency, the last time I checked, was about $3.4 million.
Okay, and the last
There's an amount also set aside for grant matching funds of about $1 million that's included in that 3.4. So that gives you about 2.4. And then there are some things that are coming down the pipeline that aren't included in this second amendment that will be needed to, that we'll need to use some of those contingency funds for. That'll be on the third budget amendment that has not been prepared.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Khalid.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Clerk.
I was in the queue, I was in the queue to
Mayor.
speak.
And I was in the queue as well.
I'm in the queue.
You know what? Excuse me. Let me do this.
Yeah.
I got Ms. Gums next, and Mr. Baker, I'll get you. Okay.
Mayor, I'm in the queue. Is your queue working?
Yeah, I'm in it as well.
I'm looking at it. That's why I'm saying Ms. Gums. All right, Ms. Gums, go right ahead.
Ms. Sadler Jones, I am actually inquiring about money that was set aside for, I believe, ATVs, and we had actually voted, I believe, to put it back in the budget. And according to one of the staff members, that it is not there. Is that accurate information, or is there a way that we can put the money back in for the police operating ATV vehicles?
Councilmember Gomes, if I am not mistaken, it is my understanding also that there is no money in the budget to purchase ATVs.
So was it taken out of the budget? Because my understanding was that it was removed, but we have voted for it to be put back in.
I can only assume that it was not put back in.
Is Nina available to address that?
Nina, can you confirm that for me?
If it was included in a capital budget at one time, Councilwoman Gomes, if you'll recall, when we set up the URA, all the capital funds were transferred over into the needs of the URA. We went from $4 million to a $16 million URA fund to fund all the capital expenditures that were needed by the city. And if there were vehicles at one time included in a capital allocation budget prior to the implementation of the URA plan, there were some sacrifices that had to be made in order to fund the URA initiatives that were deemed most important. I don't know about I don't have the information to tell you when the discussion took place with respect to putting in ATVs. I've heard about ATVs, I've heard about motorcycles, I've heard about vehicles every 5 years, but the URA funds are the capital funds that the city is operating with.
And I echo what Ms. Robinson said. I've had questions myself about vehicles and other things that were supposed to be included in the fiscal year 2021 budget. Those items were not included.
But
So how do we?
There was discussion about it. I mean, even to the point of the URA, I remember, especially those ATVs. And I've asked on many occasions, do you have these things coming? And my response has always been yes.
I think what will be good for me to do is to go through the exercise. I remember right before Mr. Donald left the city, he provided the council with an extensive list of items that were not able to be included in the budget, but he thought they were important. I think that memo went out in November of 2020. I'll see if I can recall that memo and forward it on to Ms. Sadler Jones to communicate it to you guys, if that's okay.
So
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I agree with Nina. She and I have talked about that, providing you all with a list of items and also looking at some optional funding sources that we may be able to buy those much needed items out of.
Let me say this. I think it's imperative that we purchase those vehicles. We're not going to end the stop of these people coming to our neighborhoods, running through these pipelines at 11, 12, and 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning without having a vehicle of that nature. So it's very important to the quality of life of our communities that we have those types of vehicles to control this type of thing that's going on. So somewhere we need to find some money.
Exactly. And I look forward to the follow-up as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome.
Ms. Willis?
I don't want to prolong this because there are some of the things I would like to discuss relative to is going to be related to personnel and litigation. So let me say this: if in the third, I don't see what I'm looking for in this budget amendment, and what I'm looking for is additional funds that came in relative to franchise revenue. Will that be in the third budget amendment?
Yes, it will.
Okay, and I will discuss further because I understand that's related to litigation and personnel. So I'll discuss further with Ms. Sally Jones in executive session. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Rao.
Mayor, I think I don't want to beat a dead horse. I do recall the memo that we did get from our former city manager, but I totally echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Some of the things in there now that we have, maybe realized some additional monies that we didn't originally anticipate, that the city manager and assistant city manager go back and look at some of those more critical areas. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember.
Mayor?
Yes, that's Ms.
May I just say just one thing? We did get some additional revenues, but I want to also remind everyone that when we built the budget, we were uncertain about our economic situation, and we did budget very, very conservatively on expenditures. So there are going to be some additional expenditure amendments that we need to make too. So I just want to caution you and give you that little bit of information as we move forward.
Yes, we'll have Ms. Rao and then we'll have Mr. Baker.
I was in queue too, man.
Already spoke. I'm good.
Mr. Reed, then Mr. Baker. I'm sorry. Are you finished, Ms. Rao?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Reed, then Mr. Baker.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Also, I'm gonna go back to what Councilmember Khalid was talking about that blighted property fund. As that's why I understood it, and I was saying that there was an extra $200,000 that was supposed to be added in there, and I would like Director Reed to answer the question on where we at in the process, because I believe that process has already started, and so if she can speak to that.
Mayor.
I think, not to be, you're asking about implementation as opposed to a budgetary item on the agenda.
Well, this kind of goes towards budgetary item because I remember receiving an email on a budget amendment that she sent in and was going to request for additional funding that was already supposed to be in the budget, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Reed.
Okay, so we are currently, we've received the survey back for the properties identifying what homes, if any, have asbestos included on the properties. I'm working directly with our assistant city manager and regarding the process of moving forward. So once I receive an update from Mr. Toms, I can then move forward giving clearance for the demolition. So we are at the go start for the demolition at this point.
Okay, and then remember, can you recall that email where you had sent a memo requesting funding for a budget amendment?
Yes, sir. So I informed you all that the amounts for the demolition, we received 200,000 within this budget, and so that will total very closely up to that amount once we, in fact, demo the entire 7 homes, as well as take all these properties to court. Each property has to have a title search. In addition, a survey must be done on each property to physically identify what chemicals or issues the property may have. And that has allowed for us to come up to that amount now. So once I, in fact, have the 7 homes demolished, we would have met that amount. So maybe by late April, I can say that I won't have enough money to then move forward with any more properties until more money is given. So I was going to wait until that time to ask for more money if there was going to be a separate mid-year budget amendment.
And that's what I'm getting to. So the money, based on what Councilmember Cleese said, you shouldn't have to ask for a budget amendment of money that's already been put into that particular line item budget. But we can have a one-off conversation along with the city manager as well as we can get that corrective action measure to transpire.
Received.
Okay, thank you. And then also too, the next deal was what the ATVs, as that I think the chief gave a presentation on a counter solution opportunity that of seized ATVs that they had to repurpose those vehicles for police usage. If he could speak to that, or if that plan is still underway or enacted, but I believe he spoke to that before, and I want to get clarity from him if that is okay.
We do have a couple of ATVs that are in our possession. We just have to wait until the courts award them to us. Originally, we had 2 child-sized ATVs and then 2 for adults. But as of right now, the smaller ones have been granted to the police department, but the larger ones have not.
Okay, and that was through the court system, correct?
That's correct. That's through the courts. Sometimes that process can be rather lengthy when you're waiting for the courts to convert items over to police use, and that's kind of where we are. We're still in the court process with those.
Okay, can I ask you, did they give you a written statement of why they granted you the child usage and not the adult usage?
Well, it depends on when we take them in our possession. So sometimes it might take 6 months to a year before you're able to get a judgment on those. The ones for the children came through much earlier than the other ones did. And we got those on a warrant that was executed, I believe it was around the beginning of 2020. We didn't get the adult ones until much later in the year.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, anyone else? Next item.
Next item.
Was speaking.
Mayor, I think we need to approve.
Mr. Baker,
No, you know what? It's okay, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to yield. Director, my apologies. Councilman Reeves pointed out a couple of the things that regarding the blighted property. And Director Reed, I'm going to send you an email that I sent to Public Works earlier this week regarding a Buckhurst Trail home for the blighted property as well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next item.
Mayor, we need to approve the budget amendment. I move that we approve.
No, it's first read.
Okay.
This is the first reading.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is item 16. This is also a first read. First reading of an ordinance enhancing operational efficiency, amending section 4.13, City Clerk of the City of South Fulton Charter. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Rao. First reading.
Just to provide background to remind the council, last year, this started with our prior clerk to make it clear that maintenance of all board records would be maintained by the clerk's office, and to make sure we have consistency in how all those documents are maintained. That's what this primarily seeks to do.
Anyone else?
Yes. So is this the ordinance that I was working on with Mrs. The former clerk and the Ronaldo Pasco on prior to her leaving Mr. Adams?
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. I wasn't familiar with that.
So if this is concerning record retention, and because we were getting dang on our audit regarding this.
No, so, I'm sorry.
No, this is a different. This is completely different.
Okay,
there's a whole email trail when we were trying to get clarification on who was maintaining the records. This doesn't have to do with record retention. And I know previously the council did have it. I think it was more about implementing, but this is separate, Councilwoman Willis.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, that is correct. I'm familiar with what you're talking about now. We will be bringing that one, that ordinance forward, but no, this is something separate than what you're referencing.
Okay, I'll get with you regarding ordinance, and this ordinance never did go through the legislative process. So if you don't mind, Clerk Adams, can you please get with the city attorney and the new city attorney and the new city manager and explain to them, and Mr. Pascal, so it can be explained how ordinances should go through the legislative process, because we should be getting emails when a piece of legislation goes through the legislation process. The entire council and all of the staff that it applies to should be getting an email once something goes into the legislative process. And so this never went through the process. I've never seen this, and it would just cut down on the conversations.
This dates back so far. It actually did go through the legislative process. It, like I said, it was even prior to the former city clerk, and she was involved with the discussions on it. So this dates back a very long time.
Right, and I understand that it may have gone through the process as far as you're concerned because the clerk knew about it, but typically we should get an email when something is submitted through the process. And I'm telling you, I did not get that email. Like, you all got an email about our communication policy. You all got an email about the prayer service, but I never got an email about this. And so I'm just asking for Clerk Adams to make sure he gets with Mr. Pascal and the city attorney and the city manager so that we can make sure all the legislation that appears on the agenda that we are addressing goes through that process.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Willis, we will definitely do that. I'll have Mr. Pascal resend that to you. But it did go through the initial process and does have a FIS attached. But we'll send that to you right away.
Okay, just send the email, because if it went through the process, then we should have all gotten a copy of the email.
Right. Yeah, he should be able to just resend it. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Adam, next item, please.
Next item is first read, item 17, first reading of amended parking ordinance. It's my understanding that the sponsors on this need to be corrected, but I have Willis, Khalid, and I understand Mayor Edwards should be a sponsor.
Yes, it was. I mean, I know that Khalid was working on parking amendment, but he has never worked with me on this policy, and he's never sent me anything. Mayor Edwards have been working with me directly on this policy, and we met with the community that was on the news and had concerns about not receiving their mail. We had a Zoom call with the police chief, and so Mayor Edwards and the solicitor have worked closely, and the chief of police have worked closely with me on this policy. So it is titled wrong. It should be Willis Edwards. If Mr. Khalid wants to, come on as a co-sponsor, I don't have a problem with it, but it should be titled Willis Edwards.
Any further remarks?
Yes. So Chief Meadows.
Yes.
Does this policy?
Willis, hold on. Ms. Khalid, would you like to go on this legislation?
I'll let Councilperson Willis finish, but I do have some comments when she's done.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Willis.
Yes, I just wanted to ask Chief Meadows to report if he had an opportunity to review this policy, and does it incorporate everything that you're asking for to enforce the parking issues that we're having in District 3, and I guess throughout the city, because I know in District 3 we were having issues with individuals parking on the streets, and they were impeding the flow of traffic for emergency vehicles and school buses. We had kids missing their school, not being able to catch school buses because of the flow of traffic. We also had in District 3 where individuals, we had an individual with scooters that they were charging scooters and parking them on the street. And so that's what made us revisit the policy. Plus, the community contacted Mayor Edwards regarding not being able to get their mail because they were parking on the street. So he dealt with that issue more intimately because the community could not come to a resolve. So they wanted Mayor Edwards to resolve that issue. So my question to you, does this policy gives you everything that you need to handle the parking issues in the city of South Fulton?
Yes, it does. I do see one thing in there that might be a little problematic, though. I think where it says that you would get written permission from your neighbors. I think that might cause some enforcement issues for police officers, because if we come by to ticket someone, they'll say, well, my neighbor gave me permission. If that neighbor's not at home, then it's going to kind of force us to play round robin with them. And then they might get written permission one time and it might be a year old. And so I think we would want to be a little bit more descriptive when we take a look at it. If we're not going to permit parking within 10 feet, my preference would be that we just do it unilaterally across the city without exception.
So what would you recommend to the city attorney that we change that? Because I want this policy. I don't want it to be problematic for officers when they have to go out and deal with our community, because I don't want them I want to minimize the adverse situations they're in.
Right. I think if we just took out the written permission piece and just say you can't park within 10 feet of a private driveway, if we just took that piece out, I think it'll be fine.
Okay.
And everything else is in accordance with state law as far as the parking, as far as the fire hydrants and things of that nature goes. And so everything else looks good.
Okay, Attorney Hyman, can we get the policy to reflect what Chief Meadows is requesting? Is Attorney Hyman on? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Attorney Hyman, was it the intent, just to be neighborly, to have someone to park in front of their home with permission? Because a majority of those situations where someone's parked within that distance, the neighbor would pick up the phone and call the police if it's in violation. But I guess to be neighborly, if you called your neighbor and said, listen, I'm having people over for an event or whatever, and they get permission, then those calls necessarily won't come in. And then that would kind of rectify, I think, that issue. And so if you would, I don't know if you want to put something in there to be a responsible neighbor, or just reach out to your neighbors in that effect, or just remove the language altogether.
Chief Meadows, I'll research the intent. I was not the original drafter of this legislation, but I can certainly find out the basis for that language.
Right, because I think what I don't want to do is if an officer comes by and tickets a particular vehicle, and then the resident says, well, I had permission, and then, well, you're supposed to have written permission. They don't have written permission, but the neighbor actually gave permission verbally. And so I would kind of like to avoid, the back and forth of the written permission piece.
Mayor, do you mind if I request that we hold this policy and bring it back to the next regular council meeting so that we can allow Attorney Hyman to do his research for the intent of the policy? And then if Councilmember Khalid wants to co-sponsor and he has changes he wants to be considered for this policy, he can send them over to you and I as the sponsors of this policy.
Mr. Khalid is next to speak. This
is first read. This is first read only.
Okay, well then we could just, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, let me get to Mr. Khalid. Mr. Khalid, come on.
All right. So a couple of things. I think some of the confusion has happened because unfortunately, Chief Meadows sent both you, Councilperson Willis, and me the same memo, but did not let us know he was sending us both the same memo. I do have a different set of issues and have developed a different ordinance, which is not competing, but complementary. And my ordinance is still going through the legislative process. I did get feedback from the solicitor, so I hope that perhaps they could even come back together because they are complementary.
Right.
My district which is only about 5 square miles in our 100 square mile city, is the most densely populated in the city. Right now, we currently have 6 subdivisions under construction. Hundreds of homes are being built. They are all townhomes. Most of them have 1-car garages, and some of them have streets that are only 21 feet wide, so that fire engines can't pass if anyone is parked on the street. And so Madison Place, as the place that Councilwoman Willis talked about, their issue is not just that, it's not just a parking issue. They have not received mail in 4 months, including their January ballots, their prescription drugs, their stimulus checks. They have not received any mail in 4 months. And Channel 2 Action News' Taisha Fernandez was on scene and watched post office trucks drive by completely empty streets and not deliver mail. So that's a separate issue that we'll be tackling, and people who are interested can follow my newsletter for what we're doing around that. But I say all that to say that in my district, which is super dense, it's there, we don't have an issue necessarily of people wanting no parking. People need to know where they can park. And so the ordinance that I wrote created a process that when people come to the city, people can come to the city and say, please show us where we can park. If you go to many densely populated areas, whether it's downtown Atlanta or downtown Fairburn, you will see colored curbs and, you know, striped out places where people can mark, and there's all of this signage. And that is actually what I did when I walked through Madison Place with Public Works and the fire department and all these other departments. We came up with a parking plan. So I wanted to formalize that. And so that is the goal of my ordinance, is to tell people or to help people figure out where they can park. In general, my policy making tends to lean towards empowering people and telling them what they can do. Restricting things and telling people what they can't do, I usually leave that. I usually do that kind of policy making for corporations and developers. I feel that too often in government, we create opportunities for developers and create obstacles for individuals. So that is, it's a different orientation. With that being said, I do understand the importance of no parking zones, perhaps in other districts in the city. And I've always said that our districts are different. So I'm not in opposition to that. I do just want to make sure, though, when we enact this, that there are that we work with our communications department to publicize the law, that we work with our public works department for colored curbs and signage in places where we're going to have this, and that we work with our municipal courts to make sure that they're put on notice of the possible volumes of cases. Because as I'm reading, section 8-1017C says that we could end up fining people $25 per day for these parking violations. And what I would hate to see is a replay of what happened with previous ordinances, where both the courts and constituents felt caught off guard by the new legislation. So I just want to make sure that we're bringing everybody in, and we do a really good job both of publicizing it and marking where people can and can't park. Thank you.
Mr. Khalid. Ms. Gums?
I will send my questions and comments over. I was going to ask the chief to address, and then, so what I'll do is that I will send them to Councilwoman Willis and the chief, and also Councilman Khalid, just to make sure that everything is copacetic in regards to this, because I have a lot of questions as far as HOA procedures, and if people have overnight parties or overnight guests. So there's a lot of other answer questions in regards to how this will be implemented. So I will send those questions, and not to hold the meeting up.
Mr. Clerk, how many opportunities to speak has Ms. Willis had?
I think this is her second time.
This one coming up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Willis, go ahead.
So I want to give a point of clarity. So our legislative process typically starts with the city attorney. And so the previous city attorney, the onus should have been on her to inform all the policymakers who was working on this topic, not the police chief. And so I too have emails from the solicitor and the police chief. And so if the city attorney knew that there were two policymakers working on this policy, that should have been communicated to the policymaker. What I am asking, since this is the first read, if Councilmember Khalid has a policy going through the legislative process, please send that information or have Mr. Hyman be aware or give him the information. As Councilmember Gums stated, she's going to send the information to me, Councilmember Khalid, Mayor Edwards, and please copy the city attorney. And then I would ask for Attorney Hyman to look at all the comments, look at both policies, and figure out how we can consolidate and come up with one comprehensive policy. Because according to what I have been told, there's not a one size fits all issue. No district is more dense than the other. Some of these neighborhoods have been developed long before we were alive. And so we're going to have to figure out how to address this issue comprehensively. But most important for me, I don't want public safety cars impeded when they need to get into neighborhoods because of parking on the street. And I don't want kids missing the opportunity of going to school because they can't get picked up by school buses. So thank you.
Okay, we'll close with Ms. Rao.
Thank you. I have sent a number of comments to Chief Meadows, and I trust your work to incorporate. I did offer more than just the concern about the written permission to park in front of somebody's house. So please take that into consideration. And as you and Councilwoman Willis kind of work through that, look at some of those other comments. And I will say that speaking to a number of our colleagues in other cities, this issue with mail is not just unique to our city. It's not just unique to one district. We need to do something and continue to be engaged with the U.S. Postal Service about the delivery of mail. I can tell you in my area in particular, and I don't think it's unique based on other people I've talked to in other parts of our city even, that we have mail being delivered very late at night. And so, we need to prioritize and have conversations with the U.S. Postal Service relative to that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Clerk, next item.
Next item is item 18, first reading of parking ordinance recognizing City of South Fulton veterans. This is sponsored by Councilmember Gums.
Councilmember Gums.
Yes, this is the first read. This was brought to me by a local resident here. Also, too, it should not be any financial, there should be a FISC, but it should have zero impact on the city's obligations because we do have a vendor who is willing to donate the signs for the veterans parking. One of the things that I do want to change is the fine for parking in these locations down from 50 to 25. This is not an ordinance where we are attempting to, charge our residents, but this is just to show a complimentary service to our veterans in all that they do. So I hope that my colleagues, once the second read comes along, will support me in this effort.
Okay, any further response?
Well, absolutely. Councilwoman Gums, I love that idea. And I would like to turn to you further because I would like to be a co-sponsor on that as well. So I'll give you a buzz.
Thank you. I welcome that.
All right, Mr. Clerk.
Next item is the item that was added by Councilmember Willis. I have it listed as council approval to establish a policy to only hear zoning public hearings on the second Tuesday at 6 p.m. and to vote on the same zoning cases at the next regular council meeting on the fourth Tuesday at 4 p.m.
I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
So seconded.
I'll be moving second. Discussion.
I have discussion.
Yes, sir.
In the second Tuesday in April.
Maker of the motion, may I please explain, Mayor?
Go ahead.
This is being put in place to slow down the zoning and development process as residents have overwhelmingly requested. Therefore, is simply put and stated as the clerk reported. On work sessions, which is our next meeting, will be a work session. So all cases presented on that work session will simply be heard. We will also get public comments. So they will take the information back they hear for public comments. They will take the information back they hear from the council. If we need to have community meetings, if we need to have additional conversations, they will have until the next regular council meeting for any zonings to be voted on. This is to accommodate, to give staff more time to work on zoning cases, and this will give staff more time to work with the community and council members, and it will give us more time to thoughtfully vote on zoning cases that is coming before our council. So yes, if the next meeting is a session, then we're only going to hear work session cases. We're only going to hear cases and receive public comments.
Okay, Mr. Khalid, you still have the floor.
That sounds great. So on the fourth Tuesday meeting, we will just vote and there will be no discussion, or will people be able to represent, like if we've made changes, will the developer or people get to say anything, or like what does that look like?
All public comments will be made on the regular council meetings when we have regular comments. We have public comments. When we get ready to vote on items, what typically happens is the council member moves the second, somebody gets a second, and there's the discussion. And then if the person, like we typically do when we hear things on a regular council meeting, if staff needs to present or say anything relative to the legislation, the chair of this council will give an opportunity to explain. But public comments would have been out of the way concerning the specific hearing, because we would have heard them in a work session. If they want to make additional comments, they will have 2 minutes at the top of every meeting, like all residents do, to say whatever they have to say regarding any subject.
Okay. All right, any further?
Yes.
Yes,
And
I have questions.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Khalid, I knew you still had the floor. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sir? Mr. Khalid?
I'm done, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Rao.
I think I'm going to raise similar concerns that Councilman Khalid raised. So if we hear a case at the first meeting, I think a developer or presenter or anybody would want to be able to respond if we have discussion at the second meeting. I think it's very unlikely that we would just vote and not have any commentary. What's the difference between this and doing what we have always done, which is to defer a case if we're not ready to vote on it? That's our current process. Plus, I think this is also an area where we can educate the public, because before these cases get to us, they've gone through at least 4 steps, 3 to 4 steps. And so it's gone before the planning commission. The staff has done a recommendation. They've gone before the community zoning information. Maybe it's a way that we make it clear for the public, because we can always defer a case when it comes before council. We did that at the last meeting.
Maker of the motion, may I please clarify what she's asking?
I'm just raising.
We work with staff. So this wasn't pulled out of the sky, Councilmember Rao. Staff is recommending that we do it this way as well, because they feel under the gun when even though it has gone through the planning commission, even though it has been deferred sometimes, they feel under the gun when we are presenting a zoning case and then we just have to vote on it. And it will cut down on the deferrals. I mean, at the end of the day, we are being inundated with development. And as much time as we can allow in the process, that's what residents are overwhelmingly screaming for us to slow it down. Let us have time.
Ms. Willis,
Yeah. Can I hear from the staff about their recommendations? Who are, yeah.
Ms. Rob, that's what I'm about to do. Ms. Willis, I
Thank
didn't say you can answer that question, but I think it needs to be answered by staff. So if Ms. Reed, are you here?
I am. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. I'm not sure what staff spoke on this, but I don't believe this will be a good opportunity for the sake of time. For example, there's multiple public hearings that will be had here. There's multiple presentations that will be had. As mentioned, there's 4 different presentations that were already given on public comment prior to even making it to council. So the public comments are already being received in multiple areas prior to coming to council. So I'm agreeing that if it's an item that needs to be held, it can be deferred. I'm just not certain why we're doubling up the work in this way, or even tripling up the work if you think about it, because if it's deferred multiple times, we're presenting again and again. I want to also add that that doesn't stop the applicant from requesting to change their packet, which then means you're now producing a new packet when it's heard at the second or even third time. So I just want to make it clear that staff is not supportive of this request. It actually adds to the workload. And I personally would like to ask on behalf of staff if we can just keep it the way that we've been doing it for one meeting.
Okay, Councilmember Reed. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir. And this is for existing applicants who want to change zonings, and we do have a public outcry, as the process they hear about is far past their ability to have significant input, which prompted me here to start my 5th district standard operating procedure protocol on any coming forward, because we do have to understand the developer has already had a financial input in filling out the application zone period. And if it's not even, the community hasn't had a chance to look at it or present itself, then, that leads to other things down the road that's contrary to what we're trying to achieve here. So my protocol is different because it actually, before they even put the money for the application, and the community has the input well beforehand. And they, meet with the developers, and if it's a greenlit process, then we can streamline it. For existing developments, I think personally this ordinance is a good idea that we hear the cases and then we can work out that 30 days to get more input and have the community directly talk to the developer, particularly the community that it impacts the most, and with information getting out there. So if staff doesn't recommend this, then we have to do a better job in communicating when these zoning cases come. There's more ways of information have to be put out there in the beginning. And that's what the people are complaining about, is it's not there. So we just need to work out a system then of communication if staff doesn't agree with this. I personally agree with this ordinance because I think it's effective in a communication process from the community representative, and the developer, and staff can be included in it as well. So we have to streamline the process, but until an alternative efficient method comes, I will stand behind this ordinance.
Okay, Ms. Gumbs, then me will close up.
I do believe what everyone is trying to attempt to accomplish is trying to find a streamlined process. It does appear that, based on how we are going through it now, it becomes a little bit more complicated. I don't want us to be in a position where we are not supporting, community engagement and things of that nature. So I am suggesting if we could take just a step back and find a process that is amenable and work very closely with staff. I believe when City Manager Jones had mentioned the process of getting this done, she was saying that we should go through a process of legislation. So instead of adding it, we already added to the agenda, but find a way that we can work with staff and come up with a workable process that encourages community engagement, and then also having an active process for the residents and for council. So that would be my recommendation. And I hope Councilwoman Willis will be open to or amenable to that.
Let me just say this, and then I'll call for the vote. Mostly I hear from community is that we do not honor the basics when it comes to zoning. You see, zoning is about land use. Nothing else. Nothing else. And a lot of times people get upset because we seem to ignore the basic zoning principle of land use. Everything else is secondary. And so I would say to you that I don't care how long you pull this thing out, if you don't deal with the basics, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. When you have, if you got land use that says R2 and somebody comes and says R3, well, they're out of the land use. Why are we talking? That's the basic concept. So that's all I have to say about it. I will take a vote.
Mayor, I was in the queue before you started talking, and I really, point of order, I really wish you would check with the clerk to find out who's in the queue before you call for the vote.
I got the queue right here, ma'am. You're not in it.
I am in the queue. It says request to speak. And so maybe your queue isn't working because I'm in the queue.
Are you, Clerk, are you showing her in the queue?
No, my queue shows vacant as well. Ms. Willis, are you in the right meeting?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Ms. Willis, I said I was going to talk and we were going to take a vote. But since you say you was in the queue, go ahead. And this is the last statement, and then we'll take a vote on this.
And so then the process is that we're allowed to go up two times in 5 minutes. And this is my second time, so I'm not violating any policy.
If the chair says this will be the last vote, that's what the chair says. Now,
I understand that, Mayor, and I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm explaining to you I was in the queue.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Willis.
There seems, and I'm going to be amenable to what Councilmember Gomes is requesting, that we hold this, and I want to get Ms. Sadler Jones involved because there's a problem, and there's a problem with communication with staff and conflicting information. And I respect the directors, but there is staff that has subject matter expertise that is being ignored. And when I work on policy, I work closely with staff per the permission of the city manager. I don't never go to staff by myself. And I understand what Mayor said, that most people have confusion around the basic concept of land use. But the other complaint that I am overwhelmingly hearing from residents is that we are rushing through with development, and we're not explaining development, and we're not allowing enough community input when it comes to development. And I have to say, I wholeheartedly agree. We see things going up in our community. We see discount stores going up in our community that this council heavily advocated against. We don't understand how they got there, why they're there. We throw around the word moratorium, which is not always the best thing when it comes to development. We have a blank canvas in the city, and we have the most undeveloped land in the city. And we have to be smart about our development, and we have to be more collaborative. I don't feel good that our community is always at odds with our planning department. I don't feel good that our community is always at odds with this council when it comes to development. We need to fix this. It's frustrating, it's not right, and that is not the premise of us building this city. I am going to request that this item be held, and Ms. Sadler Jones, I beg of you to get with me, Councilmember Reeves, and any council person who has input on how this should be handled. We need to slow our development down, our process, our planning process down, and make sure that we are hearing and understanding our residents' concerns and also doing what we can according to the law. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Willis, the mayor stepped away, so I do show 2 people in the queue. I don't know how you wish to proceed.
So let me ask this, who's in the queue? Can you please call them out so that we can recognize them according to how they are in the queue?
We have Councilmember Reeves and Councilmember Rao.
Oh, okay, we are going to recognize Councilmember Reeves. Make sure the 5 minutes is on the clock. Then we'll recognize Councilmember Rao, and then we are close out on this matter because I've requested to hold this measure and bring it back in a form of former legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And so I just want to say this. I have implemented a 5th district standard operating procedure that's a win-win for the community and a potential developer. And this process is already underway. And the city manager, assistant city manager, and the legislative tracker has received this information along with CDRA director and staff as well. And so this is the best situation that works over here for our district, empowers the people to really make sure that they hear before the application is being filled out. And I'm going to stand behind mine, and I'm going to keep enacting it. So any development comes in, I hear it, then I still put it to the people, then we go in. If there's a green lit by the people, then we will work with streamlining the process to make it easier. So, but that's my own and the area that I represent. As my representative seems happy and amenable to that situation. So it's just, and I'll let y'all know how that works out as the process goes on, because there's so many other developments that's going to take place. And so not all is bad, but it's just what the mayor did say. I will agree with that. We have a comprehensive land use plan that's coming. It's going to be voted on in October. So we have X amount of months to increase the public participation. And any development that goes against future land use shouldn't even be considered. So I'll stand behind that. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Rao. And you start, can we, okay.
I won't be taking that whole time. I think on the front end, we should all be trying to listen a little bit more. I have a process that I would like to participate in the process and share. I've worked on a number of projects in my area where we extended the conversation with community, even though it had to go through all those 4 steps. And I think a lot of it is our residents don't know that they can sign up in advance to get emails on any cases. They're all on the website. And so I just think a lot of this is about communication. And so I would just ask to be a part of the working group.
Okay, thank you.
I know you said you were going to close out comments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I'll get with the city manager, and I'm asking Mr. Toms and Ms. Sallard to help us with this process. We're all in this together. Even with the 4 steps that you mentioned, Councilmember Rao, residents are still complaining that there's a lack of communication and there is a lack of timing as far as them getting the communication and hearing. So I would ask that we work together with the city manager and hear all of staff, and we come up with that will engage residents and communicate with residents. Thank you. Clerk, will you please sound the next item?
The next item is executive session.
I entertain a motion for executive session.
I'd like to make a motion for us to go in an executive session for real estate, legal, and personnel.
I entertain a second. Is there a second? Second. I second the motion made by Councilmember Gomes.
Okay, you ready for the vote?
Yes.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Councilmember Gomes,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid, Councilmember Khalid, Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was approved. You will receive your breakout room in 2 seconds.
Thank you so much.